Good morning once again, and welcome to the first session on the topic, Rethinking Land Operations in the Era of Drone Warfare, to be moderated by Brigadier General Zipporah Kioko from Kenya. Brigadier General Zipporah has extensive military practice spanning 2 decades. She has served as the Kenya Air Force and Kenya Defense Headquarters in various capacities ranging from personnel and administration, operations, intelligence, training, and strategic communication. Her current department, the Kenya Oral Strategic History, is mandated to document Kenya's strategic history by collecting and collating information on the orchestration of national strategies, policies, directives through actors in defense, diplomacy, economy, information, and governance, covering the period from 1963 to 2013. She is currently a scholar in a PhD in governance and leadership from Daystar University, Kenya. She also holds a master's in Arts in International Security Studies from King's College, London. Please join me in welcoming our moderator, Brigadier General Kioko, to guide us through the first session.
Thank you very much, Brigadier Ronald. Excellencies, Ministers of the Republic of Rwanda, our hosts, the Rwanda Defense Forces, distinguished service chiefs and service commanders, honored delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the first conversation of the 2025 Land Forces Chiefs of Staff Symposium. It is my distinct honor to be here and to moderate this first panel of this conference. Our discussion this morning centers on a subject that is urgent to security architecture globally. The proliferation of unmanned aerial systems, commonly referred to as drones, has profoundly transformed modern warfare, making this panel on rethinking land operations in the era of drone warfare both timely and visionary, and indeed an urgent matter for land forces in Africa and around the world. Drone technology, as you know, has incredible promise. This includes real-time surveillance, intelligence gathering, and surgical high-precision attacks. Alongside this potential lies risks, and drones, as you all know, are dual-use technology. This is a technology that can be repurposed by non-state actors designing very compelling battlefronts for conventional land forces. To fully appreciate the pathways towards optimal deployment of drone technology through state-centric and collective action, we have the expertise of 3 leaders who are here with me on this panel. They are going to steer the discussion on how to entrench proficiency of drone technology in our operations, our doctrines, our training, and modernization of the defense forces. I will be introducing them shortly. Before I do that, allow me to share how we have structured this conversation. I will be inviting my panelists who are going to make an opening statement. The opening statement is going to build upon the conversation this morning, and it will also roll over to the plenary. For the plenary, I have been made to understand that when you press your microphone, I am going to see it on my screen here. Like now I can see the speaker from Mauritania would like to participate. So maybe you can press so that it doesn't show on our screen. But that is how it will work. You press your microphone, you will be queued, and I will call you out.
Specifically, I think it's the left that we request, the left button.
Thank you very much. So if you press your left button, You will be queued up here on my screen, and I will call you out to participate. You are free to make a contribution or ask a specific question to any of our panelists. Distinguished delegates, the panelists before us are greatly experienced, and they are highly decorated in their respective fields. As they are seated here amongst the three of them, we have over 70 years of professional military experience. What this means is, if I am to read their bios comprehensively, we will be here until the cows come home. And I am sure that's not the intent. So allow me to make very brief introductions to our speakers individually and request that they make their opening statements. Our first speaker and panelist is General Pierre Schill. General Pierre Schill is the Chief of Staff of the French Army since July 22nd, 2021. He has served the French military for over 3 decades, honing a career as a Marine infantry officer. He has extensive experience in military command and international operations. He is also highly decorated with several distinctions and honors. His key deployments have been in Chad, Somalia, Bosnia, Côte d'Ivoire, Albania, Central African Republic, and Senegal. General Schill, welcome to the panel. Your opening remarks, sir, please.
Thank you very much. Perhaps I will try to speak English, and if it will be easier for the translation, but if I need to go back to French, I will do. So perhaps a short introduction in order to say that as members, or as responsible of our armies, we need to look at the fights and the wars that are under our eyes in order to find what is something that is linked to the current situation and what will come for the future. There is one thing that I am really sure of, is that the drones will be part of the future of the societies, and the drones will be part of the future of the fight. This is what we see everywhere. So what are the impacts? I would say first, 3 points. The first point is that drones are here and will stay. The second part is that this is a threat. And the third point is this is an opportunity. First, the drones are now everywhere, and they will be here for the coming years. So this is a very important topic for us. But this is not for long. It is not, of course, we had some drones in our armies for the last decades. But the reality of the coming of drones in the fight is very new. It is a 3 or 4 years old reality. When we look at the Ukrainian theater, there were only few drones in 2022, and now there are hundreds of thousands used everywhere. This will stay in the future. But I think it is quite the equivalent of what happened during World War I. During World War I, at the beginning of the war, there were very few vehicles used in the army and used in the society. There were very, very few plants. The use of electricity and oil was not so important. But because of the war, at the end of the war, the planes were here. The cars were here. The electricity and the use of oil in the current life were here. Because during those 4 years, when huge nations put all their strengths in the fight, there was a speed up of those technologies. And I think this is the case for the drones because of the wars that are under our eyes. Do we think this is a change or is it a revolution? I would say I think it is a change, but I will come back on this point. But it is a huge change for the future. Sometimes I've been told that this is not a question of drones that are speeding up the evolution, but this is a question of AI and cell phone. That means it is all this digital application over the drones that is bringing the reality of the change in the field, on the change in the fight, and so of the change in the societies in front of us. But perhaps another point, just concluding this first question of the drones will be there for the future, I think that there will be the same case for the ground robots. The drones, aerial drones, are going faster than the robots, the ground robots. But what we see in the current fights is that they are coming. They are mainly coming on the logistic parts, but I'm really sure that on the coming years, that means 5 years, this question of robotics on the ground will be also a big change on the fight. So this was the first point. Drones are here, and they will be. So how do we see those drones? I think that the first assessment we have is about the threat. This is a new threat. So us as armies, we have to cope with this threat. Because we are in a time when the immemorial battle between the sword and the shield gives the advantage to the sword. That means we don't have, for the moment, the shield against those drones. We are looking to find the solution, and it may be a multi-layer solution in order to protect against the drones, but the fact is now the sword has the advantage, and so it is used everywhere. So it will be used against us. And plus, it is some kind of in French, it will be nivelante. That means this is something that is reachable by non-state organizations. This is very cheap, and so it could be used, it can be used by some non-state enemies, non-state gangs, and so on, that we will have to face. And so it is very important. It is a very a threat that is everywhere, and I'm very sure that, once again, I'm focusing on Ukraine, but the other places where there are wars, it is the same, that the hundreds of thousands of soldiers who have used drones at war, at the end of the war, it will come in a way or another, will spread this ability everywhere. And so the question of drones will be everywhere. It is not only a question for the militaries, it is also a question for the societies, because the voyeur will use drones. Those small thieves will use drones. The gangs will use drones. The non-state organization will use drones. Armies will use drones. So this is a very common threat that is the police is facing, but also the armies. And of course, the question, as soon as we talk or speak about drones, we must speak and we must be part of the question of the protection. The question of the protection is a question of we must make an effort in order to protect against drone, because I'm very sure that every layout, every deployment of the armies in the future will have to face this air threat. Becoming with the toy drone, going up to the hyperveloce bomb and so on. So the protection against the air threat is paramount. It is a question of dispersion. It is a question of protection by detection. It is a question of anti-drone systems combined with anti-short range, very short range, long range systems. So as soon as we are talking about drones, immediately we have to talk and deal with the question of anti-drones. So drones will be everywhere. It will be a threat, but it is also an opportunity. I think it is an opportunity in order to act, but it is also an opportunity, and this is the main point, in order to put into our armies, and this is what I do in the French army, the pioneer spirit. That means this is the new frontier okay, soldiers, even with few euros, few dollars, and so on, build your drone, use your drone. This is something you can use and find new ways of making techniques, of making tactics, and of increasing your skills and ability. So this new frontier is paramount in the innovation, in the time of innovation in which we are going. That means, of course, the innovation coming from the top is very important, and we have created in the French Army the Future Combat Command, which is in charge of the innovation for big topics, big skills, big capabilities, mainly in links with big companies and so on. But the pioneer spirit, that means how the soldiers are using whatever they are able to have in order to implement their tactics. I think this is one of the keys of the future for our armies in a time when the technology is evolving so fast. So using this question of drones in order to say to my army, small French army, let's use, and soldiers, let's use the drones as the new frontier and have this pioneer spirit. This is very important because those drones as opportunities, they bring us, as they are low cost, or part of them are low cost. I will come back to this point just after. This is something quite reachable in order to implement the C2, in order to implement the transparency of the battlefield, to gain the transparency of the battlefield, and also in order to implement the lethality because of the link between the targeting and the effectiveness of our capabilities. But the question is that one of the problems, and it is also the fact that we are calling drones the 50 grams drones up to 20 tons high altitude drones. So the question is, I think there is a question of drones as a whole, but of course, perhaps there is a good way to split the question into small parts. And in the French army, we have said that there are the fighter drones that are the drones that are used by the soldiers. Their first job is another job, they are infantrymen, cavalry, and so on. And they are using, in addition to their gun and pistols and so on, a drone. So those are part of the drones, and there are some skills to develop with this. There are some drones intermediate that could be support drone. They are used by specific units within the main job of the regiment. For example, in an infantry regiment, there is in every infantry company we should have a drone group, or in each battalion to have a platoon drone, and those drones are some kind of bigger, and it is another question because the soldiers who are using them you are able to train them in order to use in the best way those drones. And they are the bigger one, and they are used by some specific regiments, such as intelligence regiments and so on, and this is the first job of those regiments and those soldiers to use those drones. So the question, I will end here my points, because I have still the question in my army: is it only a transition, or will it change the way of fighting? Is it a revolution or an evolution? I think it is an evolution. That means what we see also is on the fights under our eyes, we see that, of course, there are those new technologies, including drones, C2, digitalization, use of low space, and so on. But at the same time, there are still the trenches, and the mud, and the fear, and the direct fight between the soldiers, and the shelling, and so on. And this is a pity. We need to go toward the new topics and domains, including drones, but as an addition to the traditional skills we have. And the question is, how do we have in the same units or in the same army some very strong, no-fear soldiers and some geek in order to be able to exploit the new domains and the new tactics, because once again, as soon as there is a new equipment, the question is not how to use the equipment, but how to make an evolution into the tactics. And if drones are making an evolution, they are deeply changing some parts of the fight. And for example, one of the experimentation we have made in the French army is that we are transforming some of our cavalry recce regiment squadron into cavalry recce drone squadrons. That means how do we have new tactics when the drones are coming, and not only using the drones as making better the missions we were doing before. So those were the points I wanted to give initially.
Thank you very much, General Schill. You have truly progressed our discussion this morning. You have led us and probably persuaded us to your view that drones are the new norm in warfare, and that we are currently witnessing an evolution of sorts. You've also pointed out that we are actually in a different phase altogether, from the drones up in the sky to robotics for land forces. You've also directed and amplified how big a problem we are dealing with, that whereas the military are looking at drones as threats in the battlefield, it is actually a wholesome societal problem, and the scenarios are as advanced from petty crime to what we find in the battle spaces. Thank you very much, General Schill. Our second panelist falls in line with what General Schill has just been discussing, the capacity and the proficiency of drones to provide command and control. We are going to be hearing from Mr. Tiamu Raji, who is the director of Senegal Flying Labs. He is also the founder of Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, and Togo Drone Academy. He's also a founding member of the African Drone Forum. He's a distinguished technology and development professional with over 2 decades of experience bridging ICT innovation, capacity building, and unmanned systems operations across Africa, Asia, Europe, and the Middle East. He holds a master's degree in computer science from UCLA. As a regional technology expert and strategic advisor, Director Tiamu has supported African governments, international donors, and defense institutions in the design and implementation of drones and artificial intelligence-driven projects. Welcome, Director Tiamu. Your opening statements, please.
Thank you very much, Brigadier. Let me start my statement with a question. I come from this, I'm not a military, so I want to put this clear, and thank you, General, for putting these points on the floor. I'm a civil technologist, a trainer who has spent over 2 decades now supporting and encouraging some governments into taking into account this technology. And I'm glad to see now that it's a big debate that we are all opening up to. We always want to act as a bridge between the innovations, the new technologies, the civil society and government, to make sure that these drones technology serves both security and development goals. The question is this: who in this room, and I'm sorry to put it this way, know how many commercial drones we have globally today? How many commercial drones are out there today? The answer is over 2.8 million commercial drones on the market. And that is a big question. And how many commercial aircraft do we have today? Less than 30,000. So this is a big challenge for everyone, whether it's military, private, or development institutions. We need to, and the general said it right, we need to take this into consideration. Drones are here to stay. We need to adapt with it. Our forces, our countries need to adapt to this reality. What the general did not bring up, and I hope I'm not wrong on this, I guess he's talking about military drones. In everything I heard, it's more about military drones. But the game changer is actually commercial, easy access drones. That is the game changer today. Accessing these technologies, accessing the kits to build this technology in-house is a big challenge. So we need to keep that in mind. So I will be focusing on 3 main points. First, we need and we must strengthen civil-military collaboration in all our aspects of approaching this topic. Civil-military collaboration. Private sector innovations has to happen, and we need to approach this. The second point I'm going to talk about, we need to invest in people. Invest in people before the hardware, before the technology. Building capacity, making sure that engineers, data analysts have access to the knowledge to be prepared for the game changer I spoke about a few minutes ago. And the third one is making sure that drone operations remain ethical and accountable. Ethical and accountable. Why? Because we need to work together with the civil society, with the private sector in creating an environment for code of conduct, data management frameworks, and make sure that these all guide responsible use of this technology across board. On the first point, I wanted to actually state that we need, and I know we have partners around the table from around the globe, but African states need to reduce the dependency on foreign contractors by leveraging on local expertise in drone training, innovation, data processing, and system integration. It's good to work with, international community. It's good to work with partners around the globe, but we need to build this strong, powerful approach locally on the continent in our countries, because this is key to achieving technological sovereignty and operational resilience. We need to work together to make sure that this should not be only looked at like for military, but we also need to combine the collaboration and make sure that we work together. On the second point, at the Flying Lab level and the African Drone Forum, the objective is to build, and that's what we have been doing. We organized our first African Drone Forum in Rwanda in 2020, right before the COVID. The objective is to build and prepare the next generation of African drone pilots, engineers, data analysts to operate independently. We realize that some of the training, your forces, your teams, your equipment or community, military community, the training given to you needs to be looked at differently to adapt the reality of Africa. The few chances we get to train, to meet your colleagues, we realize that they get training from partners that are not adapted to the reality on the ground, that are not crafted to respond to our realities, our environments, our weather, everything combined. So we need to take this into account, create local content, local approach, and continue to collaborate with partners across the globe. is important. And I will end on this. The third one is to remain ethical and accountable. Drones, we all know, extend our reach, but they must also not erode our values. We have values on this continent. We have rules, we have traditions. We need to make sure that this technology does not erode our values. Civil society and academia have already been doing a lot on the continent. We need to work together to create this environment so that it serves both security and development goals. I will end on this for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Tiamu. Staggering figure there, 2.8 million drones, commercial drones, flying in the global space. Who owns them? Who's keeping count? You've also raised a strategic question. Should militaries make, or should the private sector provide? And also the question of building capacity. Should the military invest in this, or should the private sector provide this? You have equally raised salient issues on matters ethics and accountability when it comes to drone use. You've also pointed out on the need for Africa to grow indigenous expertise adapted to the realities of our African terrain. Is this possible? I think it is, and our next speaker is going to highlight just how possible it is for African militaries to actually embrace drone technology, drone deployment, and also infuse it in our operations. The third panelist is Air Vice Marshal Professor Osichaka Chiedu Obadike. UVM Obadike was admitted into the Nigerian Air Force in September 1996. In the last 3 decades, he has been instrumental to the Nigerian Air Force unmanned aerial vehicle development and domestication programs. He is currently the Director of Aerospace Research at the Air Force Research and Development Institute. AVM Obadike is appointed Professor of Aerospace Engineering at the Air Force Institute Technology in Kaduna. He holds a PhD in Aerospace Engineering from Cranfield University, United Kingdom, and is currently completing a second PhD in Artificial Intelligence. AVM Professor Obadike, welcome to the panel. Your opening statements, please.
Thank you, the moderator. The challenge of being the last speaker is very enormous because you find out that all the things you have written down to talk about has been spoken by previous speakers. And I'm tempted to say all points covered, but I know that might not go well for this meeting. So I will try in the few minutes I have to make my presentation. And also I realize that the last speaker has left 6 minutes, 48 seconds. So I will try and take as much as I can from that 6 minutes, 48 seconds. I have prepared some PowerPoint for my presentation to aid our understanding of what we are about to discuss. I will start by saying that in a gathering like this, it's important to understand your environment because you can have a solution for another environment that will not be useful for your own environment. We are talking of African solution for African problems. So I will start with a story about Coca-Cola in Saudi Arabia. A year, the sales have plummeted, and they decided to employ a very young chap to come up with how they will revive their sales. And the young man came up with the picture on the screen, the advert, meaning somebody was lying down in the desert, he drank Coca-Cola, and then he regained his energy. Unfortunately for him, after this, the sale of Coca-Cola went to zero, and people were now asking what happened. They forgot that in Saudi Arabia, you read from right to left. So it means a very healthy man who drank Coca-Cola fainted in the desert. So knowing your environment is very important. So we're going to talk about rethinking land operations in the era of drone warfare. I will start this with a very short video.
Customer pilots directed almost 3,000 precision strikes last year. We're super proud of it. It allows you to separate the bad guys from the good. It's a big deal. But we have something much bigger. Your kids probably have one of these, right? Not quite. Hell of a pilot? No. That skill is all AI. It's flying itself. Its processor can react 100 times faster than a human. The stochastic motion is an anti-sniper feature. Just like any mobile device these days, it has cameras and sensors, and just like your phones and social media apps, it does facial recognition. Inside here is 3 grams of shaped explosive. This is how it works. Did you see that? That little bang is enough to penetrate the skull and destroy the contents. They used to say guns don't kill people. People do. Well, people don't. They get emotional, disobey orders, aim high. Let's watch the weapons make the decisions. Now, trust me, these were all bad guys. Now that is an airstrike of surgical precision. It's one of a range of products. Trained as a team, they can penetrate buildings, cars, trains, evade people, bullets, pretty much any countermeasure. They cannot be stopped. Now, I said this was big. Why? Because we are thinking big. Watch. A $25 million order now buys this. Enough to kill half a city. The bad half. Nuclear is obsolete. Take out your entire enemy, virtually risk-free. Just characterize him, release the swarm, and rest easy.
Era of drone warfare is going to bring a lot of challenges for troops on the ground. Drones used to be exclusive preserve of few militaries, but is becoming new equalizer on the battlefield. Doctrines that were built on mass, maneuver, and firepower are being disrupted by perception, precision, and persistence. With drones, land operations that are being conducted under constant surveillance. So there's need for a new thinking about force protection, deception, and maneuver. So I'm just going to cover these 4 points quickly. The emerging trends, implications of drone warfare on land operations, operational imperative for land forces in Africa, and then imperative for self-reliance, starting with the emerging trends. So the first emerging trend we know is about kamikaze drones, that are small drones, relatively small, and maybe they are one-time use, and appear in large number, fly and evade radar. They are very cheap and can be deployed by the dozen. So land forces protection priorities should include hardened platforms, early detection, and layered countermeasures. Next is low-cost swarm drones, where a lot of drones communicate with each other and have devastating effects. We have incidences of the Aramco oil processing facilities that were destroyed by swarm drones, also Sevastopol oil storage tank destroyed with swarm of off-the-shelf drones. It means that land forces should prioritize counter-swarm tactics, distributed command and control, resilient communication, and scalable logistics when planning fleet-level UAV integration. The next we'll talk about is the emergence of anti-drone technology. The enemy wants to deny you the use of drone, while you also want to protect your assets with drones. There are so many technologies, including radar, jamming, using catching nets, and also drone-to-drone combats. This will afford land forces opportunity to protect its own infrastructure and also channel its own UAV operation effectively. In recent years, drone has been proliferating that you can buy cheap drones off the shelf. My colleagues have mentioned that they're readily available. And in Africa, we have seen non-state actors using these drones effectively to harass our own troops and also to destroy our equipment. We have been seeing commercial DJI drones fitted with guns and grenades, and they've been used effectively in some of the countries mentioned on the screen. So retrofitted commercial off-the-shelf drones can have strategic effects. So we need to have that in mind. I will also show about technology, AI, next video please, AI and drone technology combined together.
Get Ringo around the other side to identify the woman. That's Stanford. Hawaii 5, confirm PID, please.
PID, Susan Hill and Danford.
So drones are getting smaller and are getting smarter. So for me, from this small video, I want to say that all cigarette packets do not contain only cigarettes. All insects are not just insects. The big brother is watching you. All thanks to artificial intelligence integrated on drones. So when next you see an insect in your deployment area, you have to interrogate to determine if it's real or an AI-powered drone. So some of the impacts of the drone in warfare in recent conflicts. It's been published that over 60% of deaths in Ukraine-Russia war is attributed to drones. Also, there are many conflicts. You can see the table on the screen, where for tanks, a total of 143 kills were confirmed. Out of this, 101 were ascribed to drones. Artillery, out of 233, 212 were ascribed to drones. And trucks, out of 236, 157 ascribed to drones. I've also seen the use of drones by the Houthi rebels to cause economic destruction. So this demonstrates that the potential of drones in the hands of non-state actors is real, so we have to plan for that. And we know that a cheap drone worth less than a rifle can destroy an armored vehicle worth millions. What are the implications of drone warfare on land operations? Drones are becoming new weapons that transform capabilities. So as land forces, we have to explore the advantage. And I believe we can integrate surveillance and kamikaze drones even into platoon operations. Drone is bringing about battlefield transparency. The tactical concealment we know before is no more the same because we are under constant surveillance. We also have to rethink logistics and resupply under constant surveillance. What about dispersion and concealment? Traditional massing of forces is an easy prey for drones. We saw what happened when Russia was trying to take Kyiv. A long convoy of vehicles were destroyed by drones. So we have to think about distributed formation. And rather than mass forces, we can mass effects. What about the doctrines we have? in the era of persistent surveillance and precision strike, some of these doctrines are becoming obsolete. We need to look at them. What about the contested nature of operating environments, drone-saturated environments, where you cannot move without being seen? So we need to look at that. And one of the greatest things I talk about is the drone psychology. Whenever there's drone attack, it's not even the impact of the attack that's the problem, but the psychological effect it has on troops, because there's going to be confusion. We had that in World War I, what they call shell shock. We're having that now, that they use the drone to harass our troops, and they don't have the willpower to fight back. So we need to use that to maximum effect, and also understand limitations of drones so that we can train our soldiers with that. Operational imperatives for land forces in Africa. Drones can only be useful if we have the skill and expertise to use them. So we need to invest in training and manpower development, which is very, very key. Early adoption of drone doctrine and operational concept is very, very important. We don't just employ drones without a doctrine. We have to invest in counter UAV and force protection. A lot of insurgents are using drones to harass troops and stop movements. We have to think, do we want to invest very large amounts on proprietary military-grade systems, or can we trial commercial off-the-shelf anti-drone system? The drones that are using to attack our troops are DJI, they are commercial drones. Why are we using $200,000 worth of anti-drone system where we can get $15,000, $10,000 of commercial anti-drone systems? So we need to think about that. Anti-drone systems should also be part of our troop movement. We need to invest also in training and institutionalize the drone training at all levels. Our professional military education, we have to integrate it into our campaign design. We have to train our units to operate under drone harassment. And there's something we discussed while back home in Nigeria. Can we do what is called drone battle inoculation? Because some of the soldiers that are seeing this drone effect, the first time they're hearing the noise of drones and the sound of dropping bombs in the field. So if we train them with that, they might get used to that when they go to the field. There's also the need for flexible command and control, where you have a centralized intent, but decentralized employment, because the battlefield is very dynamic and it changes very fast, a matter of minutes. So commanders in the field should be given some opportunity to innovate. Another thing for African armed forces and land forces is proper sizing procurement. Let what we buy be what we can sustain. There's no need just buying big drones that we cannot sustain and that will not be useful. We also need to rethink about combined and integration. Use drones for something like artillery. You can use it for precision. Integrate drones into the infantry, integrate drones with the armor. We can also establish different drone units. The Nigerian Army has actually tried that and it's working very well. They have a UAV and Space Command, and also they have different drone units in the field. Collaboration at the regional level is also very important. Training and joint operation, as well as data sharing. So what about the last? This one is the imperative for self-reliance. Do we continue to rely on imported technology? Can that help us? What can we do in-house? Our self-reliance should be anchored on the need for strategic autonomy, cost effectiveness, and operational security. I was discussing earlier that a drone was offered to us by an OEM, and the cost of the drone was about $1.3 million US. When we went for the inspection, we saw that the drone is similar to what we have been seeing online at commercial level. And we decided to explore that and found out that it's the same thing. Maybe the systems were changed, and we bought those drones for $45,000. So you can imagine $1.3 million and $45,000, we need to take our destiny into our hands. There's also ongoing restriction by these countries on the export of drone technology. So a time will come, even if you have the money to buy, you cannot buy. So the imperative on developing your own technology is important. So for us to do that, we have to develop a clear R&D roadmap for drone development with timelines, capability, and milestones. We have to also adopt a progressive development philosophy. Don't go for the big one at a start. You can start with very small one, reverse engineering off-the-shelf drone, until you get the competence to build the bigger one. We have to explore dual use and commercial off-the-shelf technologies. There are a lot of agri drones that you can get, remove the water tank, and equip it with something that will drop payload for you. There are also drones that are built with foam, very cheap, and 3D printed now that we can also follow and get. Our students at our Institute of Technology have been tasked to develop low-cost drones, and they've come up with some drones, some of them shown on the screen now. The one on the left is an agri drone, but the right side has been modified to drop munitions. The one down left is a foam drone, building material, building foam, styrofoam was used to develop low-cost drones, and they're all operational at the moment. We need to focus on low-cost radio frequency detection. There are open source software-defined radio systems we can use to detect these drones and then get off-the-shelf signal jammers to disrupt them. Above all, we need to invest in human capital development. The Nigerian Air Force did this in 2005 by having a collaboration with Cranfield University. That collaboration led to the training of 11 PhDs and 78 MScs on drone and aircraft technology. This workforce were now, when they came back to Nigeria, a center was established for them, and they've been the core of Nigerian Air Force UAV development. So other services and countries can also look at this model to see. We also need to encourage military, academia, industry partnership to domesticate drones. Reverse engineering should also be something that we'll look at. So I will conclude by saying that no nation can be proud unless it's self-reliant in critical technologies. Strength respects strength, and technology is the foundation of strength. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, UVM Professor Obadike. You have cautioned us that, one, not all insects are insects. You have also cautioned us that drones are allowing increased transparency of conduct of military forces in the battlefield. You have also cautioned us that beyond developing our counter-drone capacity, we also need to invest on drone psychology and the impact of drones in the battlefield for our soldiers. You've also raised a very important point on the question of human agency surrendering the autonomy and the power to these unmanned aerial systems to make assessments and to have precision strikes. You have also encouraged us that this is possible if we invest in progressive development of the drone capacity and even shared a pathway in Nigeria that is through partnerships with academia and the military. Thank you very much, sir. Distinguished delegates, all our three panelists have given a very strong voice on the need to integrate drone use in our tactical training, operations, doctrine, research and development, as well as to consider the ethical, legal, and strategic dimensions of drone warfare. We are moving to the part where we are going to be welcoming participation from the plenary. But before we go there, I have just one question for our panelists to respond to. One is a question of training. Full aware that currently, as our land forces are configured, we do have equipment within our inventory which is used in the battlefront. How then do we train with the drones so that they can fit in within this ecosystem? I will direct this question to General Schill. Sir, please.
Thank you, and thank you very much for the briefings. I'm really supporting, this is not a judgment, but I'm really supporting what has been said. But we are at the two edges of the table, the Army and Air Force. And if I make a caricature, I would say you are relying on technology in order to make a revolution, and I'm on the other edge. That means I'm relying on on the permanency of the human reality of the ground, and how to reach, not to miss this question of new use and technology of drones, even if a lot of things are at the end on the same way. The question of training, just before answering the question, I would say, seizing the opportunity of drones in our armies, or for my army, is to bet on the fact that there is a link between the question of initiative, risk, subsidiarity, innovation as a pioneer, small kits, and we know that armies are made of small kits when some other branches such as Navy and Air Force are organized around big equipment, and agility. And this is linked, the name of those words today is drones. So using the drones as a weapon, using the drones and the question of protection against drones is paramount. But it is also a way, I think it is a good way, in order to put agility, initiative, culture of risk within the forces. And it is why, when it comes to the training, I think we should stress on the fact that let's go too far. Let's train too much, to use too much drones in your training, having some drones, very different drones in different units and so on, because the danger is to not to take the turn of the modernity and drones. Even if at the end, my aim as the chief of army is not to have an army completely different, with every soldier having his own drones, own weapon, and so on. So there will be a question of how to try to organize this kind of innovation everywhere in the army, in the technical, but also in the tactical way. This could be used by saying that the C2 system will be the same for all the drones that are coming in the army, and some other ways in order to have this innovation going in the same way. But for the moment in my army, I say drones, drones, drones. Use the drones as you go for the shooting range. You must shoot on the drones, shoot from the drones, and shoot against the drones everywhere. Use the drones, because this is, once again, the new frontier and a new way of training. But of course, this is really useful and for the very small drones, the less expensive one, when there is a question of how to also have some innovation in the sworn organization of the drones and all the AI that has been shown on the presentation of the general.
Thank you very much, General Schill. Air Vice Marshal Professor Obadike, would you like to add on that?
Thank you very much. Before I talk about the issue of training, I want to also emphasize that drones are not there to replace boots on the ground. They are there to enable us to understand how best to deploy these boots. So they will support our operation. Several countries have had several policies on drone training. The UK, for instance, have established FPV training school where they do annual drone racing, because they want to make their FPV pilots very proficient. So they push them through this drone racing to increase their proficiency. There are also a lot of drone simulators that could be used, even both official and non-official training. But the criticality of training cannot be overemphasized. Like I said earlier, no matter the equipment you have, if you cannot use it, it is not very useful. So training is important, but how to go about it, there are so many ways you can do it. There are simulators. Integrating the drones into daily operation is also important. Like the general said, soldiers build the drone, fly it, even fire at it. As they are doing that, they're also increasing their competence and their knowledge of the drone system. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Air Vice Marshal Obadike. I am calling for participation from the plenary, contributions on the subject matter or questions. While we wait for that, we can have Director Tiamu also respond to the question of integrating training into the military for drone use.
Thank you very much once again. I think I just want to stress on one point with regard to the question on training. I think one thing is to be trained, and the other thing is to be well trained. We need to think about that. Good training for the forces, for the teams, makes you save a lot of money because you have less crash, you have less issues, and focus on tactical training after. Because the master of this equipment, the use of this equipment is dynamic, is evolving. We need to make sure that the forces are well trained. And to share an experience, we in Senegal had the opportunity to train the police force. And they came to our training center only to discover that, in fact, if they had had that training that they had with us, they would have been much more efficient on the ground than what they had. Because some of them were trained within a short period, specifically funded, and then the instructor came from Europe and delivered the training and just went away, only for them to discover later that there were still some things that they don't understand and they don't use, because when they don't get lost, they cannot find it, they don't know how to, discover where the drone is going, how it is going, just because they were only focusing too much on the tactical point rather than the usage. So one thing is to be trained, and the other thing is to be well trained. It's very important. Thank you.
The elasticity between just training and being well trained. Thank you very much, Director Tiamu. We have contribution from the delegate from Algeria.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السادة الحضور الكريم، السلام عليكم. اسمحوا لي أن أقدم تجربة بلدي الجزائر فيما يخص هذا الموضوع. في هذا الصدد قام بلدنا الجزائر بوضع إطار قانوني لتنظيم النشاطات في هذا المجال من التقنيات الجديدة، وذلك لتمكين جميع الأطراف المعنية من تنفيذ المهام الموكلة إليهم في إطار قانوني وبدون تداخلات، وذلك من خلال هياكل المتابعة والتنسيق وإصدار قوانين متعلقة بهذا الموضوع. إن الدروس المستفادة من الصراعات الحديثة بالإضافة إلى التقدم التكنولوجي المحرز في مجال التسليح وأنظمة الطائرات دون طيار لم تخرج عن اهتمامات الجيش الوطني الشعبي الجزائري، بل اتخذت قيادة القوات البرية مجموعة من الإجراءات لتجهيز قوام المعركة البري بهذه الأنظمة. في نفس السياق وضعت قيادتنا آلية رد لمواجهة هذا التهديد، خاصة على مستوى المواقع الحيوية والحساسة وعلى طول حدودنا الوطنية. وفيما يتعلق بالتكوين، قامت قيادة القوات البرية بإدراج دروس في برامج التكوين وتنظيم ملتقيات حول المعارف التقنية وإجراءات مكافحة الطائرات بدون طيار. من ناحية أخرى، يظل التحضير القتالي مساراً أساسياً للرفع من القدرات العملية لقواتنا، ولهذا الغرض تنفذ وحداتنا البرية تمارين تكتيكية بعدة سيناريوهات للقتال الكلاسيكي واللا تماثلي، تتضمن أساليب وإجراءات استخدام أنواع مختلفة من الطائرات دون طيار. ولمواجهة هذه التهديدات العابرة للحدود، خاصة تلك المتعلقة باستخدام الطائرات دون طيار والتي تواجهها قواتنا البرية، أصبح من الضروري اليوم إيجاد آليات تسمح لقواتنا بتبادل الخبرات والمعلومات على غرار مركز التنسيق المشترك للعمليات سيموك ومقره بالجزائر، ولجنة رؤساء أجهزة الأمن والاستخبارات الإفريقية سيسا، وكذلك وحدة الاندماج والربط يافال، والتي تعمل كلها تحت جناح الاتحاد الإفريقي. وشكرا على حسن الإصغاء.
Thank you very much, sir, for highlighting to us on the regional capacity and also the progress which has been made by the Republic of Algeria, bringing together conventional as well as modern tactics to ensure that you are superior in the battlefield. We also had another question from Mauritania.
السلام عليكم. إنه لشرف لي عظيم أن أكون ضمن هذا الجمع الكريم من أجل تناول بعض المواضيع التي تتعلق بمصير قارتنا. من ناحية أخرى أشكر المحاضرين على تناول الموضوع الأول الذي أسهبوا فيه وقدموا الكثير من الأفكار الغنية التي ستفيدنا جميعا. هذا من جهة. من جهة أخرى بصورة عامة يتضح أن استخدام الطائرات بدون طيار في الحرب البرية يمكن من فعالية واستقلالية وتكنولوجيا بالنسبة للقوات البرية. هذا بالرغم من بعض التحديات مثل التشويش، الأمن الفرعي، تكاليف الحصول عليها، وكذلك تكاليف الصيانة، وخاصة الطاقم البشري المختص القادر على القيام بتلك الصيانة، إضافة إلى التبعية التكنولوجية. وفي هذا الإطار يطرح السؤال: كيف تتمكن الجيوش الإفريقية من الوصول إلى الاستقلالية الاستراتيجية في ميدان الدرونات في ظل التبعية التكنولوجية الأجنبية؟ أرى في هذا الموضوع أن التفكير في إنشاء عقيدة عسكرية موحدة بالنسبة للقارة الإفريقية، وتكون مبنية على النقاط التالية: أولاً، التعاون الجهوي، الاستقلالية التكنولوجية، تكوين الطاقم البشري المختص المقتدر، وكل ذلك من أجل بناء قوة حديثة متصلة قادرة على السيطرة في نفس الوقت على الأرض والجو. وشكرا.
Thank you very much, sir. I would like to invite General Schill and UVM Obadike to respond on how to develop independence of drone technology, one from the French military and also from an African perspective. And from Mr. Tiamu, we would also like to hear on how to develop this united and unified African belief on modernization of the military integrating drone technology. General Schill, please.
Yes, thank you. I think in the coming times there will be a mix of some kind of a traditional procurement and buildings of the capabilities and some kind of a new world. And I'm not the most able to say it, but I think that on this new world, Africa may be well in a good position, because I think that there will be some big drones systems, and those systems will be built as the previous one were. That means some big companies, some programs in order to have a during few years training, buildings of those capabilities, a lot of money is put on them and so on, and those will be the bigger systems. And the bigger systems when it comes to the drones, maybe even the bigger as the biggest birds. That means most of the drones of the Air Force and so on. But I'm really sure that there will be, in addition, some kind of a new industry and a new way of making the drones and this industry on the bottom-up way. That means it is more with some small companies. And when we see, once again, I will quote the question of the Ukrainians-Russian conflict. The Ukrainians, they are building the drones near the brigades on the front line. That means, and not only simple drones. They have built some very simple drones at the beginning, but now they are adding AI. They are using some Y-controlled avec fibre optique drones, and some, they are developing a lot of drones. I am really sure that the new world of technology is a world in which the question of the small companies on the proximity between the armies and the companies, there is something to do, and it is not only because we are in a time when it is a revolution on the drones that this is the reality. I think this is the reality of this question of technology, including drones, but I think it will come with the robotics and so on. So I'm sure there is some kind of a reset that is possible here for the procurement, and this is the case in my country. We are now studying the new drones and so on with some very small companies rather than the biggest one, because there is something here that will be an evolution. And the last point on this is that there is a new economic system coming, because I can't say I will buy 10,000 drones and put them in a storage and, okay, I have them as a stockpile, because in 6 months they are out of orders. So what do I need? I need to have a contact with a company that is able to be at the state of the art on the technology and stay on the state of the art, perhaps produce very few of them in order to train, to allow me to train and to test those drones. But when there is a war or something, this company should be able to build suddenly 10,000 of drones. And I think this new way of procurement on those technologies gives the opportunity to some non-conventional industries and non-conventional organizations, and I think they may be in Africa, some of them, to be on a good position in this new world.
Thank you very much, General Schill, pointing us to a new frontier with regards to procurement and a reset in our logistical considerations. Vice Marshal Professor Obadike.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that question, sir. How can African forces attain independence in access to technology? For me, I think it's something that can be done and can be done quite quickly if we actually agree. First of all, if we look at the war in Ukraine, we found out that UAVs now are being built from garages. The era of having a very big establishment to build drones is gone. So we can have our startups within every country, tax them to start developing these drones. We have a lot of very good engineers in different countries, even hobbyists in this area of drone technology. They can be harnessed We remember that during the World War, carpenters and tailors were used to build aircraft because those are people that were available then. So we could go back to that era and look at what we have. A lot of people say in Africa, our industrial or technology base is weak. I agree. But for me, what is much important is not the industrial base, but it's what I call industrial roots. What are the roots that form the base? And in Africa, we have very strong industrial roots. And what do I mean? Science, technology, engineering, mathematics. We have a lot of Africans working within Africa for big companies abroad. We have a lot of companies, startups, doing a lot of big things in the area of drones and artificial intelligence. It's for us as military to harness these potentials, look out for them, put them in a group, and then task them to see what they can do. Secondly, probably this forum could be used to kickstart this collaboration. If there are countries that have gone far in this technology, can others leverage these countries? Like I said earlier, African solution to African problem. Let's tax ourselves under the auspices of African Union or regional bodies. Can we harness what technologies we have already? No matter how crude, with time, we'll make it better. Thank you.
Thank you very much. AVM Professor Obadike. We can also have the contribution of Director Tiamu on the same.
Thank you very much. I think they said it all. We need to rely on our polytechnics, our universities, our engineers. They are all available and can support the initiatives of the new era. If we truly want to rethink land operations in the era of drone warfare, I think Africa must invest in local innovation, homegrown innovation. We need to build this based on our terrain, our climate, our operational reality, and make sure that these are unique to the market that we are going to deploy these things on. So, from small-scale assemblies to full research and development, we can build drone systems that, adapted to African environment. As we said, most of the ones that are used right now are imported, very difficult to adapt, sometimes don't work. So we need to make sure that by investing into innovation, it creates opportunity for jobs and knowledge. And at the same time, we can still share knowledge with our partners from outside the continent. So it is all about investment, decision, and some countries are already showing the way. We know what Rwanda government is doing in this era, in this technology. Working together with the Rwanda government and many other governments, I think we can change the trend and be ready and prepared for this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Tiamu. We are still calling for contributions and questions from the plenary. I'm also aware we have participants. Participant from which country? Nigeria. Okay, thank you very much. We will have a contribution from the participant from Nigeria, and thereafter we will have a contribution from the gentleman with his hand raised up. The participant from Nigeria, sir, please.
All right. Thank you very much, moderator. I am Lieutenant General T.Y. Buratai, retired former Chief of Army Staff, Nigerian Army. I want to commend the moderator and the speakers for thought-provoking and highly professional approach to the discourse at hand. Let me, from some practical experience, the challenges that operating within Africa, that the military may face, the land forces may face. Question of human rights, I think, is quite fundamental. We have been so much during our counter operations, counterinsurgency operations against the Boko Haram, we've received so many questions that were we using armed drones, in our counterinsurgency operations? Where does this human rights issue, come in, especially within Africa? And we know our challenge now is the insurgency, terrorism, across key zones of the continent. And we must unite to deal with this. And one of the key weapons or the facility that will be required is this drone, which has been well articulated because it's the in thing now. It is the main, offensive weapon that can be easily used, despite, the range of types that we have. We know it can be used for offensive, which essentially all the speakers have emphasized on the offensive aspect. But the Professor AVM DK has elaborated more extensively on the logistics aspect, the issue of the intelligence gathering, that is intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, very important. These are very key roles that they will play, within the African continent. And the question of training and retraining, doctrine harmonization are quite fundamental in this regard. So the French general, we've been at the receiving end on the question of human rights. And we know that these insurgents or the adversaries or the enemy, as we may call, they don't care. And the level of destruction of human lives, is so much, within the continent. Is it from Somalia? Is it from Nigeria? Is it the Sahel that are facing serious threats? And so on. The efforts of the multinational joint task force, is key. But I know there are other areas that will be discussed, in this symposium, pertaining to interoperability as well as, collaboration. So I want us to put that at the back of our minds. Whatever doctrine we are putting on this drone technology, we must put into the training factors of human rights, as well as the need for us to be more objective and proactive, unless the desire for us to have a peaceful continent be the key of whatever technology we are going to employ. And we know the technology drone is quite very important now. It's very important, as the general said. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. You raise a critical question on how to navigate, and I'm going to have a binary approach to it, how to navigate state-defined regulation on the usage of unmanned aerial systems and the expectations of the international humanitarian law with regards to drone accountability by conventional forces. I think this deserves a response from all our three panelists. We'll begin with you, General Schill.
On the question of the rules, perhaps 2 points. The first point, I mentioned that how I think that drones goes with initiative, subsidiarity, culture of risk, and so on. But the fact is, in the French army, the army aviation is part of the army. So at the beginning of the drones, we said, okay, when it comes to the question of safety and security for all what is flying, we will give this to the army aviation. So we said for the drones, the training and the use of the drone, we will follow the rules of the army aviation. So we began with some kind of giving the priority on the safety. But I think, once again, this is a world in which the question of taking the risk is very important. So at the beginning, it was quite impossible to fly because the rules were very defined and very strong. And so we are now moving toward a world in which we say, okay, to every soldiers using drones or people who are using drones, let's take your risk, because this question of drones is close to the question of taking a risk, giving the initiative to the lowest level. This was the first point. The second point is about the question of lethality and autonomous deadly systems. And this is a question in front of us. It is not only a question about drones, it is a question of all the new systems that are able to kill, and with the control of men or without the control of men. Some 10 years ago, we had a rule that was always a man in the loop when it is a lethal system. But because of the increasing of AI, it becomes more and more difficult. And so there is a reflection now in my country about, okay, what could be a legitimate, what could legitimate the use of those unmanned systems that are lethal? And it is a question of AI. How can we control? How can we develop AI for some kind of a case of use that are written from the beginning? The fact that the chief will always be responsible, even if of all what is made under its control. And I think this is a big way of questions for the future in front of some adversaries that are not linked by those rules, and that will try to push the use of those automatic system as far as possible. But of course, as legitimate, as army of states of right, we need to have a control on this, but a control that gives us the ability to fight the enemies or the adversaries without being any naive, but having the rules that is needed from an army. And I think this is the question in front of us, not only for the question of drones, but for all this question that is including the drones of automatization, automatic system that are aerial ones, but once again that will become more and more ground automatic systems. And it is also the question of C2 systems, and we had some example under the eyes on the last weeks of very, very fast and quick C2 systems that are linking the targeting and the effectors, and at a speed that the chief is not able to control every strike, and what is the responsibility of our armies on this topic?
Sir, could you also speak on the international humanitarian law and drone accountability for conventional forces?
Thank you very much, sir, for that question, sir. I will start by asking, sir, in our own environment, asymmetric warfare, who is an insurgent, who is a civilian? Because we found out that most times the enemy we are fighting don't wear uniform. And some of the times that these complaints are made, we are actually insurgents that are being killed. And because they are not wearing uniform, they are wrongly tagged civilians. But be that on the side, I think we can also, like she said, the drone accountability. There are certain things we can put in place to ensure that we follow the rule when it comes to dealing with non-combatants and protection of civilians. The first one is, in the era of drone and AI, I think for now, all drone strike should be under human guidance. With that, you reduce the issue of mistaken identity. Also, we need to develop and adopt strict rules of engagement when it comes to the use of drones. That has to be part of the doctrine and the rest of it. How do we operate? What are the rules of engagement? That has to be clearly defined for drone operators. Then proper target vetting process. We have to have a target vetting process. It's not just arbitrarily targeting areas. And then, for the purpose of lessons learned, we need to have a post-strike assessment. If we do that today, what happened? Did it affect civilians, so that next time we will adjust our approach? And lastly, we cannot overlook the importance of proper and accurate intelligence, because drone is not just a standalone tool, it works with other things that the military already have. Accurate intelligence will lead us to accurate targeting, and when we vet properly, we'll be rest assured that there's high percentage of getting the people we are targeting. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Director Tiamu, on the same.
Thank you very much, Brigadier. I think to be able to answer that question is all about creating policies and regulations on the continent, making sure that regulations take into account everything that was said with regard to accountability, with regard to who takes the decision, with regard to who is civilian, who is insurgent, who is, because it's all about a chain that needs to be, taken into account when developing these policies and regulations. And the other thing is also to, I think, open up the discussion to a broader audience within the countries or within the continent. And I like the fact that someone brought the African Union approach. I think African Union at their level also need to support some African countries into putting these policies in place so that they can avoid the issues of accountability, ethics, human rights, because it all boils down to decisions that some of our countries or the continental body sign up for and then need to abide by. So it has to be a holistic approach rather than country-based approach, because the reality in West Africa, Sahel, is not the reality in East Africa, is not the reality in Northern Africa. So it has to be taken wholly based on the situations on the continent rather than country-based or regional-based. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Tiamu. We had another contribution from the gentleman behind there.
Thank you, Moderator. I am called Brigadier General Dr. Emmanuel Shirinji. I'm the Defense Attaché, Uganda High Commission. Yeah, you are tackling the answers to the question that I wanted to say. But however, I want to research it like this. The contemporary, first of all, I want to thank you for the value addition to about drone warfare and drone systems. My question is, the current, the contemporary security environment is dynamic, fluid, and complex. And the question I wanted to ask goes to the Director General of ADF. Achievement, how do we achieve drone operations being ethical and accountable in such an environment? It's still, I felt I should have some light, some more light shed. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your contribution. He raises a question of ethics in deployment of drones in the battlefield. The question was directed to you, Director Tiamu.
I think it all boils down to putting a human face into the approach of operations. When it comes to rules, international rules and regulations with regard to human rights, we all know that we are not at the same level in Africa compared to many other countries that are partners to Africa. But the reality on the ground is that, as the colleagues, panelists said, the decision-making chain needs to be aware of some of this approach that you have on the ground in the battlefield, and based on that, train and support decision-making in such a way that you can document and make sure you prove that every action you made in the field can be accounted for using proofs, using images, using something that can be tracked down to show that it was done with human face on the ground. That's it.
General Schill, you could also speak to this.
Yes, may I have 3 remarks. The first one, we are talking about drones this morning. At the end of the First World War, the planes arrived, and the question was, do we need to have a new army that would be Air Force, or will the plane be part of the fight of the land forces and the naval forces? And I think we could have this question now with some kind of new technologies that are arriving. This is a question for cyber. Do we need to have a special army as a cyber army? Or is cyber part of all the previous armies? That means cyber is a way to achieve traditional missions, or are there new worlds for cyber? I think it may be some kind of equivalent question for electronic warfare, and it may be also some equivalent question for drones. My answer now is, of course, drones are making a huge evolution, but drones will be, or an autonomous system will be part of the previous armies and so the previous capabilities. That means drones are giving the opportunity to fulfill the missions that were there before, and it is not a completely new domains. So when it comes to the legality or the legitimacy of the use, it goes back to the same rules. First point. The second one is the question of the drones with weapon. What I see is that when you have a system, an automatic system, which is flying and has weapon under the flies, at the end, when you have to decide if you strike or not, you strike more than you do if you have to send some commandos with helicopters and so on. So, and this is even more the case if your pilots are thousands of kilometers far from the place where is the strike. And this is why my country decided that the drones will be driven or piloted from the theater. And this was the case in Sahel, rather than the American system in which the pilots are in Arizona or in the States. But I think this is a real question, and it will stay. But the third point is about AI, and I was mentioning, but I did it a little bit too fast, and I come back, that 10 years ago we said, okay, the legitimacy is made by the fact that there is a man in the loop. And now we have the question which is rising again, because what was the case with the technology 10 years ago is not the case now because of the speed of this AI and what it gives. And the rules we are settling now, and in which we are thinking is, first, the AI must be, you must know what will be the result given by the AI when you want to have a legitimate system. The second point is that you put a box or limits in which you will use this system. That means before using it, you say, okay, this system has been agreed for such situation. The third rule is that you will be allowed to use more automatization in link with the danger. That means for the middle of the battle, you are allowed, or it is legitimate to use more automatization than for peacetime and so on. And the fourth and the most of them is the chief will be responsible, even if there is no man in the loop. And I think this is one of the most important point about the legitimacy of the use and the fact to cope with the rules, with the right of war. That means at the end, perhaps the last war or the last security is to say the chief under whom the system will be used will be responsible of its acts. I think this may be some elements of the reflections we have now about those discussion of drones.
Thank you very much, General Schill. Air Vice Marshal could also speak on the ethics of drone use in the battlefield.
Thank you very much. I will just say one thing. In the African context, we are dealing with insurgency, terrorism. These adversaries, they don't play by the books. So we have to be innovative in the way we also deal with that. While as conventional forces, we are obliged to obey and respect international laws, but we have to prepare for an unconventional adversary that does not think about international law. And secondly, I want to say that this issue of drone application can only be successful if leadership drives the change. And that's why I'm happy that we are having a lot of chief of staff of land forces here that will be the one that will drive this change, because if there's no leadership buy-in, we might just be playing around. So for me, in Africa, we need to collectively move forward with that while understanding, like you said, that the environment is vulgar, is complex, and we have to deal with that complexity in many ways. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Air Vice Marshal. We are coming to the close of our discussion this morning. I want to thank all our panelists for their contributions. And at this point, I'd like to invite them to make their closing remarks. I'd like to begin by inviting General Schill to make his closing remarks on the subject.
Sorry, I was sleeping. No, it was very, very interesting, and thank you for inviting and for choosing such a topic, and thank you for the exchange and for the exchange we had before. The only point I will say as a conclusion is I'm really sure that we are at a time when the situation in the world is changing so deeply that we are coming in a new strategic era. It is a question of strategy, it is a question of geopolitics, it is a question of culture, and it is a question of technology. And I think I assess that as chief of army or having responsibility in our armies, there is a huge need to try to find what will be the solutions for the future. I'm not sure they are written because we are at a time that the change is so hot, so fast, so high, so deep that it is difficult to see within at the time when we are. But I'm really sure that we may be, or it is more important to stress on the changes, on the way, on the transformation, than keeping what we had before. But what we had before, that means all the strengths of our armies created by the men and the women, the soldiers, the will to fight, the cohesion of the armies and so on, will stay the base of the strengths of our armies, and this is the case for my army. So how make a transformation, and don't miss the time of transformation, and when keeping the strength of the cohesion and the will to fight, fighting spirit of the army, I think it is what we are all facing here. And my assessment is that the drones are one of the elements that are changing, and so we must cope with. And they are also a means in order to put this pioneer spirit within the armies in link with the question of subsidiarity, initiative, agility, and lowering the level of decision and giving some level of decisions to the lower level, which is, it seems to me, very in line with what the youth, young people in our countries want and are coping with. And this is good because the technology and so on is very often something that is interesting them, and it could be a good way to make them be part of the building of the future of our armies and of their units. So this is my point.
Thank you very much, General Schill. We'll now hear from Air Vice Marshal Obadike.
Thank you. In closing, I want to say that the era of neglecting ragtag armies is gradually getting to an end, because with UAVs, poorly resourced groups can exploit it for strategic effects. So we have to have that in mind and don't underrate anybody. Also, we should be prepared to use UAV to our advantage as well as defend effectively against the use of UAVs on our own formation. And we should know and understand that asymmetric threats will not continue to wait for us to catch up. So the earlier we start doing something, the better for all of us. And UAV in land operation is developing really fast and will benefit those that understand that and hinder those that don't. African militaries will have to stay ahead of the curve by investing in indigenous research and development and strategies to either utilize or combat these threats. But in doing that, we must realize that machines alone cannot win war. We have to integrate it with operational concepts, our doctrine, and organization. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Air Vice Marshal Professor Obadike. We will now hear the closing remarks of Mr. Tiamu.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having us. To conclude, I would like to emphasize on three priorities for African states. We need to invest in people before thinking about the technology, because the technology will come and our people will not be able to use it and master it. We need to think about that, build capacity, certify local experts, and strengthen technical institutions. We have universities in our countries, we have technical polytechnics. We need to strengthen their power to support the new era of this technology that is not only being used for security, but it's also used for development. We need to make sure that we don't restrict in such a way that the economical power of this technology will be affected. That is my first point. The second point is to create frameworks for ethical and transparent drone use, balancing security imperative with citizen rights, communicate, create leadership, regional leadership. If it doesn't work from the continental level, let's build regional leadership. Countries take leads and bring around the table other countries in the regions to be able to start moving in the right direction. The last one is encouraging really African innovations. We need to support the local innovation from design to manufacturer so that we can own both the technology and the data that we produce, because we did not spend a lot some time on the data part, but we need to keep in mind that this technology also serves as collecting data, and data can be used for strategy, data can be used for action, data can be used for many things. So we spoke more about the drone, but we actually need to think about what it helps us to do. When we talk about data here, we're talking about images, we're talking about georeferencing, we're talking about positioning. So this all comes into play when it comes to using this technology. So if we want to rethink drone integration to collaboration, I think we need to look at collaboration between defense, civil society, and academia. The three have to work together. We will not improve land operations, but also strengthen our sovereignty ability if we work together. That's the only way we can survive. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Director Tiamu. I'll attempt a capsule in summary. 1, drone technology is an evolution that is here to stay. The way forward is to adapt. 2, to devolve the capacity on matters drone innovation, research, and development by embracing partnerships within the private, public, academia, and the civil society within our states and also within the region. Thirdly, not to regulate to a point of paralysis. And some of the best practices which have been shared is that 1, human agency is paramount when we are discussing drone technology, drone deployment, and that we must also build on policy and regulation within our states, within our region, and also within the bigger picture of security architecture. And we've also been told it is best to deploy from theater, not from an offshore or a different location. I'd like to thank my panelists for their experience and for allowing us to have a very honest conversation on the place of drones in the land force battlefield today. To you all, I also want to thank you for those who have contributed and also for listening to us from the plenary. From us, as I've been taught to say while in Rwanda, murakoze cyane. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to our moderator and distinguished panelists for an engaging and thought-provoking discussion on rethinking land ops in the era of drone warfare. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving a round of applause to our distinguished panel.